We are delighted actually to be at this particular point in this 3-year cycle, up to 16 science grant making councils, addressing this question of gender and inclusivity.
So we've been working with the councils for this last 2.5 years under very difficult circumstances because COVID threw some curveballs our way and we needed to adapt and adjust. And really this Learning Summit now provides us an opportunity to pause, to reflect and to celebrate with the council members what we've all been able to achieve.
When we think about gender and inclusivity in science granting councils, we have to acknowledge the fact that when we started doing science, when we started doing research, when we created granting councils, they were created primarily by men, and some of that legacy still stands today in terms of the exclusion of women, for example. And that extends to exclusion of other people as well, and that's why intersectionality is really important, to acknowledge that there are multiple layers of exclusion and discrimination that have fed into the way that we do science and research.
The gender and inclusivity focus within this larger Science Granting Councils initiative emerged in the second cycle of the project, and the aim of the larger initiative is to work with councils to strengthen their science systems, so as public funding agencies to contribute to scientific excellence, rigour and relevance, social relevance of research. So we've been working together with science granting councils from 16 different African countries that are part of the initiative, and it's a participatory project. So they have been identifying change priorities that they want to tackle in their context, and we have designed activities that we feel can support that. In the Gender Action Learning stream, we partnered with Gender at Work, and they, as an organisation, they work with a methodology that focuses on change at both an individual level and an institutional level.
As you disrupt, you pause, you reflect, you have a new experience. Each time something a little different happens, or each time you understand something that you didn't understand the time before, or the next time your team are able to discuss things that they didn't discuss before. So it's kind of like a process which sounds linear as I'm describing it, but actually goes back and forth, in and out, sideways, up and down, and it just kind of shakes things around a little bit. And we think that that's important to get people outside of the usual, the normal of what they're doing, so they can start to think differently and imagine a difference, a change.
Over the 2 days of the Learning Summit, we've created intentional spaces to elicit learnings in different ways, with different methodologies. So one of them was the poster walkabout, where council members could look at each other's posters and really appreciate what we've been able to achieve. A second example was bringing a graphic harvester to summarize some of the words and experiences in a very visual way, and mirroring back what we have been saying and thinking about over the last 2.5 years. We also embraced opportunities for embodied learning. For example, the activity with the chairs turned over on the stage as a picture of researchers that have to navigate often very difficult and challenging terrains.
In a country where right from the lower levels, high schools into the higher education level, we have a lot of women and girls in science-related areas. But then as you move up the ladder, the number in research areas or probably in top positions begin to dwindle. So there's a need for a conscious policy strategy that makes sure that we sustain those particular levels.
I think the first challenge that we realized was, I would put it as lack of awareness. When I joined the department, I was the only female among the around 6 gentlemen at my level. So it's good that the program started, because now when the program started, we started talking about these things.
Gender is not a new thing, but the approach for this program is a little bit different. So it took time before everybody was on the same page and getting to implement things as requirements of this initiative.
The SGCI gender learning experience has spoken a lot to that aspect of the heart, I think, because this is what influences the adoption and mainstreaming of the policy.
And I also like the part on the part of the HSRC, Jive Media and the team, how they're able to tell the stories around these particular issues. So it makes the issues come alive. So people are able to feel what is it that is going on.
So the journey has been incredible. We have learned, we have transformed, I think, as individuals, and also we see that light in the council. We see a change in them also in that nowadays when we discuss whether it's scholarships, it's funding, whether it's the fund that we give to other institutions to do projects and what, we do talk about gender and inclusivity in there. So I think the light has come up.
You know, it's 3 years later and we look back and we might say, what's the hard evidence of has this worked? In trying to answer that, I think it is something about realizing that this work at these levels of representation, inclusivity, at level of institutions, at level of shifting the knowledge around science, that's big work and it's long-term work. It feels like setting the intention and committing to doing it feels like a really, really important first step. And if we've managed to do some of that in this first round, if we've left councils feeling like this is really important and we really want to push on and we really want to take some of those next steps, then I think it's been worth our while.